The rain hit furs hard, sideways. It was the sound that swallowed her last words, like the sky itself wanted to erase them. But I heard every syllable anyway. Get out of my house. You don't belong here anymore. 17 years collapsed into that sentence. 17 winters, 17 birthdays I planned. 17 times I stayed quiet to keep the peace. All of it reduced to a door slammed so hard the frame shook. I didn't argue, I didn't plead, I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded. That confused her more than any scream would have. I stepped outside without a coat. The storm soaked me in seconds. The porch light flickered once, then went dark. Behind the door, I heard her crying. Not for me, but for the version of herself that believed the lie she'd chosen over our history. I walked away before she could change. Her mind, or worse, doubled down. That was the moment the line was crossed. The street smelled like wet asphalt and broken promises. When dragged leaves across the pavement like evidence being erased, my shoes filled with water. My phone buzzed in my pocket once, twice texts I didn't read. I replayed the scene as I walked. Her daughter's face pale, trembling, the practiced hesitation before the accusation, the lie delivered with the precision of someone who had rehearsed it. She said I stole from her, said I'd been watching her, said she felt unsafe. 3 words carefully chosen. Nuclear. My wife didn't ask questions. She didn't ask for proof. She didn't look at me the way she had for 17 years. The way you look at someone you know down to their bones. She looked at me like a stranger who had overstayed his welcome. The room had gone quiet after the accusation. Not awkward quiet, funeral quiet, the kind that demands a sacrifice. I was it. I remember noticing the clock on the wall. Still ticking, still impartial. Time didn't care who was lying. I also noticed something else. No one met my eyes. The breaking point didn't feel like rage. It felt like detachment. Something inside me shut off, clean, surgical. The way a breaker flips when the load becomes dangerous. I realized with absolute clarity that this wasn't about truth. It was about convenience, about who was easier to lose. And that's when the marriage ended. Not when I left the house, but when I stopped trying to save it. I walked for 30 minutes before. I felt the cold. By then, my thoughts were already reorganizing themselves. Not spiraling, aligning, I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. Water pulled on the tile as I stood under the shower, fully clothed, letting the heat bring feeling back into my hands. I stared at the wall and did inventory, accounts, documents, names, dates, control points. People think revenge starts with anger. They're wrong. It starts with clarity. And I had never been clearer. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. At 2014 a.m. I opened my laptop and logged into the shared cloud account still under my credentials. Years ago, I'd set everything up because you're better with this stuff. She'd said I had scanned everything. Insurance policies, property deeds, loan agreements, tax filings, even the security footage from the house cameras she forgot I installed. I watched the recording of the argument, watched her daughter's face when she lied. There it was, a half-second smirk before the tears. I glanced toward her mother to check if it landed. It landed. I clipped the footage, backed it up in 3 places, labeled it carefully. Then I made a call. By morning I had retained a lawyer, quiet, meticulous, expensive for a reason. He didn't interrupt as I spoke. He just took notes. When I finished, he nodded once. You didn't do anything wrong, he said. But they did. I smiled for the first time since the storm. By noon, the first domino fell. I froze the joint account, perfectly legal. My income had funded 70% of it. The notifications hit their phones within minutes. I imagined the confusion, the sudden tightness in the chest. By 1, I notified my employer of a temporary change of address and rerouted all benefits, health insurance, retirement contributions, emergency contacts. At 2, I emailed the bank about the mortgage solely in my name, thanks to a refinance years ago when her credit dipped. I requested a review. By 3, the police called. Their tone was formal, cautious. They said there had been a report. Serious allegations. They needed my side. I gave it calmly, factually. I told them where I was. I told them about the cameras. I told them I had evidence. There was a pause on the line, the kind that stretches. Can you send us the footage? The officer asked. I did. They watched it while I waited. I could hear murmurs, a chair scraping, a breath pulled in sharply. When the officer came back, His voice had changed. We'll be following up, he said. They didn't say with whom they didn't need to. They froze. The unraveling wasn't loud. It was methodical. Child Protective Services knocked on their door the next morning, not because of me, but because false accusations have consequences, especially when they involve claims of abuse. My wife called me. 17 missed calls. I didn't answer. Her daughter texted. Apologies wrapped in panic. I saved them. Didn't respond. The lawyer filed for separation. Included the footage. Included the financial records. Included a request for exclusive use of the house pending investigation. By day 3, the story they'd told themselves had collapsed under its own weight. Neighbors stopped waving. Family members asked questions that didn't have comforting answers, and then the bank called her. I met my wife one last time a week later in a conference room. Neutral ground, glass walls, nowhere to hide. She looked smaller. Not physically, internally. Like someone who had misplaced their certainty and couldn't find it again. She tried to speak. I raised a hand. I'm not here to argue. I said my voice was steady. I'm here to conclude. She cried, said she was confused. Said she'd been scared. Said she never thought. I know. I said that's the problem. She asked if we could fix it. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of everything. Timelines, screenshots, legal filings. You already decided who I was, I said. I'm just accepting it. Her daughter didn't come. She couldn't. She was busy. Learning how lies age when exposed